And I wanted to let you know a little bit about Scott, who will be helping me today. So Scott, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. I'm relatively new within Sumo. I think it's my coming into my second month here, but I've been in the industry for well over 30 some odd years since, computers, networks, and security was an issue, way back when we attached the first, these things called PCs to the mainframe. And why the heck would we want to do that? So this is a great session. It's a great product. I'm ecstatic that I made the choice to come here. And hopefully after this session, you're going to be just as happy and excited to actually get your hands on the SIM product that Sumo is presenting. So good morning and strap in. This is going to be a great session.
And I'm typing right now into the chat. Hopefully everybody can experience interaction today with using the Zoom interfaces, which we're probably all overly familiar with by now. But just one thing I left out is I'm based out of Colorado right now. So I'm in the lovely Rocky Mountains. So I don't know what areas, but it'd be interesting to know where other people from. Maybe you could just type in your location, what state you're in, or if you're calling in from out of the US. That would be lovely for us to know who all's here. So feel free to use the chat as far as communication. Hopefully you're seeing what I just typed in there. Now the agenda for today is pretty easy. We're going to be doing a little bit of a SIM overview, which I'll be doing that. And if Scott, you chime in on anything that you would like to add on. And so about 10 minutes of doing a little bit of an overview. Oh, I see Chicago and Toronto and, oh, very nice. North Carolina. I'm hoping to get to those Outer Banks on some travels down the road. And Bedford, New Hampshire. Yeah, very nice. And Austin, very nice. All right, so welcome today. So we're going to do a little overview, and then after that, I'll do a guided investigation so that you'll get to see, with a little hand holding. I'll hold your hand basically through the activity, and then you'll see how you go through an insight. And then we're going to let you go on your own insight. So we'll get you set up so that you can go do an investigation, and then we'll wrap it up with a few next steps, just so you guys know what else you can do if you're more interested. All right. So that's basically the agenda. And I know people will ask, will the recording be available? And yes, the recording of this will be available. And then also, will you have some takeaways? And I think, John, whenever you get a chance, go ahead and slide that takeaway, that handout in there at any time so that people can actually use the handout, because you'll want to be able to grab that PDF that we'll be putting into the chat. And if you have trouble, John, let me know. Oh, he got it. All right.
Just a quick one there. There was several questions this morning on the earlier one. Yes, it's recorded, as Jacqueline had said, but keep that link to the Modern Summit portal, because that's where the recordings and all these assets are going to be. So, keep access, and when you log in, you can get this information later.
Very good. All right, so what we'd like to start off with is a little bit of an overview. So for those of you that might not be familiar with our system or have some familiarity, right, I just want to talk a little bit about what's happening with our security intelligence solutions, okay? So, and what we'll be focused on today is, of course, the Cloud SIEM. So with audit and compliance, just given a little bit of starting here on the left of your screen, you'll see that we have a secure platform with, you can see the visual here that we're showing, accepted and rejected traffic on a VPC. And that is showing how we can be highly scalable, secure platform to store all your data, backed up by numerous certifications and attestations. Your data collection is scalable. So it's designed on a platform in the cloud. So both your on-prem and your cloud platforms can be ingested. Your data can be brought in. We're using a host of out-of-the-box pre-built apps. So the compliance apps that we're pointing to here, in this particular audit and compliance, are integrated into our platform, and you can easily be up and running with out-of-the-box apps. Now, moving on to the middle part of our security intelligence solutions, which we call the security analytics. This is searches, dashboards, alerts, and advanced analytics. So this is where you're going to perform your deep searches using your data to correlate, requiring anything required for analyzing your security event logs. And you're also using our pre-built apps that come with our dashboards and queries to establish, all the kind of monitoring capability for observability that you need. And Sumo Logic, if you're not aware, also provides advanced analytics for troubleshooting, such as threat intel, which we can use, as you'll see in this activity, we're bringing in CrowdStrike as part of the activity. So being able to look up those malicious IPs and to get that early detection on something's not right in the system. And you'll also be able to use a lot of other advanced commands that we have that are take a whole bunch of logs and synthesize them, that we call log reduce and log compare, that are machine learning capability. And then there's a lot of other advanced analytics, but not enough time to go into it all here. What we're going to focus on today, is CloudSIM. And in CloudSIM, what you're going to see with this activities that we're doing is this is our security intelligence that gives you that continuous threat correlation going back weeks, not just hours, because of that slow and grow type of problems in security, right? That you want to be able to identify and detect and respond to. It gives you a streamlined security analyst workflow. And you'll see that as we go through the activities, that not only is it a platform for being able to trickle up through these rules that we have in the system, trickle up insights to bring those to the forefront for you so you don't have to go digging for them, but it also gives you that workflow so that you as a SOC analyst, or manager of a SOC team can actually manage that workflow throughout the investigations. And you'll see how that works. And probably the last thing to mention here is that the SOC automation with our automated incident prioritization and alert triage, it eliminates all that noise and all that pain of alert fatigue. So that's basically our CloudSIM. Let's talk a little bit more about what's in it. So now just focusing on CloudSIM, we have this tool that has, designed, as we say, born and built in the cloud. So it's all designed in as a cloud native environment. It's focused on security events. So we have all the events that you have in the system you can access with these focused security events. And you'll see how we have all these rules that are set up in the system, and that will be those will create signals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on another slide. It correlates the threats in real time across all these multiple data sources. So as you can see, some that we mentioned here, like firewall, IDS, networks, traffic. So with that, we also can reduce those false positive alerts. So all of the information that's coming into the system will be able to be synthesized down into just what's important. It also allows you to match the alerts to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So we have a tagging system where the names of the insights get named by what rules are being fired. And that all follows the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Clustering to turn alerts into actionable insights. So you'll see how we group things that then, by their point system that we use over a 2-week period, it then takes those alerts into actionable insights. And last, it's an enterprise heads-up display, which was designed, and you can kind of see a glimpse of it over here, the heads-up display, which will be actually logging you into in a moment. But it's actually a heads-up display that will give you that kind of, it was designed by a former gaming from War of the Worlds. So we're very honored, with that interface and how it looks and how it's easy to use. Now, talking about the funneling of information and how we get to these insights that you're going to see here in a moment in the activities, is we did this 45-day eval, and we call this the funnel of fidelity, which this customer took all this 10 billion plus records, and they brought them into the system. And then from that, using our SIM and our correlation rules, they were able to reduce those down to 9.8 million signals. And then from those signals, it reduced down into firing off 175 insights, which out of those 175, we were able to detect that 95 of those did not require action. And so the ones that did require action were 15 out of the 175. And so basically that gave us a 65 incidents. And this was all done in the matter of, a few hours to be able to take all these records and run them through. So how long, would this take for your current tools and processes, right? So that's something that, we see as a big feature, is this funnel of fidelity, being able to just trickle out the ones that are important and easily identify those. So how do we do this? So we have this enterprise data pipeline that I'm showing here, and I'm going to walk you through it. The way that it works, because I'm sure you're kind of saying, well, how do you do that, right? So take the customer data. So here you would bring in your data. Now, how do we get your data? The first step is that we bring it in through the collection. So you would set up collectors in our system, which is very easily done. And we bring in on-prem or cloud-based data, right? And then the ingestion of that data then produces messages. So some people call these logs, messages. So then from those messages, then what you would do is it goes to the next step, which is the parsing, mapping, and enrichment. So in this second step, this is an accumulation of all the security related data. The records are generated from your incoming logs through parse mapping and what we call normalizing. So parse mapping is where we scrape your incoming logs for metadata, and normalizing is where the records are enriched with additional information about the IP address, the URL, the domains. So this is what will allow us to produce accurate records that are consistent across all your data. So then from those records, then the next step is to create the signals. Let me go back one. Is to create the signals. So signals are a collection of existing alerts and correlation rules, okay? So what they are is they're generated based on 700 pre-built rules. And the following, the rules, they follow the MITRE ATT&CK knowledge base. And this is where, if you're not familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK, that's where the adversary tactics and techniques, which are based on real world observation. So that naming convention is followed here with our system, so that it's easy for you to recognize by just the name that's coming up. So at Sumo, these rules are updated every 2 weeks and pushed out. You can take these rules and customize them, and then we won't overwrite them once you customize them. But we update these rules consistently, so that we are always staying, current with what's going on. So that's the signal. So we have messages, records, and signals. And then finally, what that triggers is the insights. So this last indicator is where your security operations begins with Sumo Logic. Insights. They're correlated signals with additional contextual data, from all of the data that we've been talking about through the data pipeline here that have been added on, and the enrichment and the enhancement and the entities and all that. So what we have here is this takes, maybe I should give you an actual example of an entity, since I didn't talk about that much back here. An entity can be any software element, such as an application or persons who are authorized to use the system resources. So an entity could be something like a unique IP address, a host name, a username, a MAC address. So just wanted to make sure that you understand a little bit about how we're accumulating all this knowledge, right, from your incoming logs and messages that are coming in. So in this insight state, it then correlates up into what we use a clustering effect from all this data. And you'll see how that works as we go through it. And that creates these actionable security investigations that you can do.
So just a quick one there, folks. Now, this may seem like a lot of work, a lot of different things that are going on, but remember, we're doing this for you. So we're taking these, millions of records as you work your way down through this pipeline, through the process of signals and the development of insights. All of this is done for you. So instead of your SOC analyst dealing with hundreds of thousands of logs per day or records per day, which nobody has the time to deal with, this pipeline, this process gives you, hey, what are the things I really need to worry about? And it connects the dots. So it's going to connect the dots between multiple different types of signals all relating to the same insight or campaign. So it's critical we understand this may look like a lot of things going on. Don't get confused. Don't get caught around the axle on this. This is all automated.
Perfect. Thank you for emphasizing that. All right. So with that, now what we'd like to do is, like I said, we want to get you hands-on experience here. So John put the handout in the PDF handout. Does anybody have any issues with accessing that? Because it'd be nice for me to know, because I can cut and paste stuff from the training if it would help you. But I'll go kind of slow just in case somebody experiences some trouble. But did everybody get the PDF? If not, let us know in the chat. That's your way of interacting with us, letting us know how you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to log into our training environment using this login information. All right. And beautiful. Some of you are so far ahead of me. So you have this handout here. Okay. And you'll see in this very first part that you can use any of these browsers here. And then what you want to do is just go and grab this service.sumo logic. So if I just click on that, it'll open up a brand new window in the browser tab, right? And now I was already logged in, but I will go ahead and demonstrate this from an incognito tab. I want to make sure everybody gets logged in. Okay. Yeah, you guys are always faster than me. I'm always a little bit slower. All right, so I would just do the service.sumologic.com. Then you'll see that you now can type in that email, which is training plus insight. And so if you're following along with me, go ahead and do it. Even if you don't have the PDF, you can follow along with what I'm doing. So I'll go a little slow so you can see. So I'm typing in training plus insight at sumologic.com. And then the password is currently Sumo logic. And in that logic, that's a 0. So let me show that and explain that. So I have, and get it right. There we go. So I have capital S, lowercase UMO, capital L, and then a 0, GIC, and then exclamation mark. Then once you have that, you just click sign in to get in. And once you click sign in, then you should see the Sumo interface and you should be ready to go. I'll show you the next step here in just a moment. Now, let me just run a quick little poll and see if everybody was able to get into the environment. Just give us some quick feedback. Let us know if you're experiencing any problem or if you're in. All right. All right. It probably helped to have this in the handout. Everybody's in. Okay, beautiful. All right. So I'm going to end that poll. Now, if I miss somebody and you're still sitting there going, I'm still not logged in, please reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you in the chat. All right. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take you now into Cloud SIEM Enterprises. What you're looking at here is Sumo, right? Our Sumo interface. How you get to the training that we're showing today, Cloud SIEM Enterprises, is you'll click right here at the bottom. Do you see where I'm at? I'm kind of hovering, Cloud SIEM Enterprise. So click there. And hopefully you see the heads up display. All right. All right, so now what we're going to do then, let me go back to the slides and get us set up, is the first investigation I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the HUD. Okay, so going back to the HUD, let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing here. This first area, you have like 3 panels if I break them up into these 3, left, middle, and right. So on the left-hand side, what you're going to see here is you're going to see the different information that allows you to monitor all the metrics. So here, what we mentioned is the records, right? This would be those messages that have been correlated, right? And enhanced and normalized. So now we have those records. And so it's showing you how many. So you get that information right at the top, how many signals were generated and how many insights. And then the rest of this information down here is tracking metric information, sorry. You have the detection time, like how long it's taking to to monitor for, to track all your insights that are coming in, how much it took you for doing the detection, your responses, and your remediations. So you can see right now we have a lot that are new. We haven't yet moved them over in the workflow. This is part of our workflow here that you're seeing. It's showing the metrics. So it's showing you there were 8 that are shown here as new. And then it also tracks down here the status of created and closed metrics so that you can track. So this is part of giving you in the heads-up display the metric data for what's going on with all the insights that have come in and how have people been working them as the different analysts have gone through. So that's on the left-hand side. You also have control over the time up here at the top, 24 hours, or you can click on that and change this and it'll update the HUD to whatever time you want. Right now, I'm going to leave it for the sake of this activity to 24 hours because that's what I want to see. The middle section now is the heads-up display. So this is where you can actually track the incoming, be able to track and see all the incoming insights and records and signals. Let me go ahead and show that here. So here on the outer part, okay, starting here at the top is 0 time, right? And then we're going around and we're producing that 24-hour display, okay? So just like a clock, you would just go around this way. This outer ring are your records. So just correlating with this 2 million, which just updated, we update every minute. So this 2 million records is being demonstrated and shown here. Then in the middle is the signal. And then in the very center, these triangles, which all of these are in the red phase. We have different colors depending, like red means new insight, yellow would mean an in progress. And we'll actually see that when we go through the activities that will move some to in progress. Green means they're closed, so that shows these statuses over here. And white is ones that you've customized. So what we're going to do then is take a look at, after we've looked at this insight radar, is over here on the far right, you can see insight activity. And what this gives you is tracking information. So here you're seeing this latest one. This is the newest one, which is the first one we're going to investigate today. As you're seeing what's new that came up that you might want to go in and take a look at. And it's giving you all the details on it, how many signals it used to trigger it, how many days duration. So from the first signal that came in to the last signal created the insight, and it tracks what the duration was for that. Some people might call this the dwell time. And then down here, you can see what everybody else is up to as well as yourself. So if you make any changes, like here's my name, I made some changes, you can see that I was tracked. So you can scroll down and take a look at the tracking information. So this is in your heads up display. What we're going to do then with this first activity is we're going to go in and look at this new insight here. So what I'm going to do is go back to the slides. And we want to go in and look at unspecified malicious activity as shown in the picture on the right. Okay, so we're going to toggle between board and list views. I'm going to show you that here in a second. All right, so let's go find that one, malicious activity. So if I click on this triangle here, you'll see unspecified malicious activity. All right, does everybody see that one? If you didn't see where I went, to go back to the HUD display, you can click on Sumo right here. Okay, that toggles you back and forth. And then if you click on any of the triangles, so if you would start with this one right here, click on that, and you'll see unspecified malicious.
If you're not seeing these 5 bars, new, in progress, etc., on the upper right-hand side, you see lines going up and down on the right side versus going east and west. Right. So if you're seeing east and west, that means you're looking at in a list view. And the second one, if you select that one, this gives us the different boards that we're going to be looking at. So if you first go there and it didn't match what Jacqueline was doing, it was just the fact that you had the other one selected.
Yeah, so this toggles between board and list views. And the board view is giving you the workflow. So here, the first thing I want to do in this activity is I want to move this, and we can all do this together because it'll take a moment for it to update. You can just move this. The first thing I come in, I want to work on this insight. So I'm going to move it as a SOC analyst over to in progress. And I can just physically move it. Now, if you're in the list view, you could do it a different way. You can go into that insight. So if you're in the list view, you can click on the insight and then go in and change it to in progress here using the drop down, which is really nice also. So depending on what you want to do, then you may want to assign it. If I'm the boss, I might want to assign it to one of the people that work for me. If I'm just coming in here doing it, I can assign it to my name. So I'll just assign it. You guys can play around with that if you'd like. So you can use these drop downs and assign that activity to yourself. So that way now it will be tracked in the workflow. Now, if you're in, you see that when I came in and now I'm in the details view. And the details view, what's really nice about it is it's now going to show you this timeline at the top. And you can actually click on the events and it will show you, if you hover, you can hover too, or you can click on them. It will actually take you through all of the events, all the different signals that came in to produce this insight. So you can also scroll down. I'm just kind of scrolling here to show them to you. Or you can click through them on the timeline as they're all represented. So you have a time view as well as just an outright listing of them. Now, we have several different ways that we use these signals. We have rules, we have anomalies, threat intel, and third party. So we can talk more about that and reference you to more information if you have some questions on that. But all of these in this case are, the ones in this case are, you can see that I have rules and I have some threat intel in this particular one. So let's kind of take a look at these. As we mentioned, we follow the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So what we're doing here is you can see by the names that they're very easy to interpret, even just by the names. So if you look at this first one, it started at 9:10, and then you can see 9:15, and then this one also triggered at 9:15, and then at 6:30 p.m. then this one triggered on the next day, right, on 6/7. So you get the time, you get the information, you get what type of trigger it was for the signal. You also get what type of action, the device IP. So you get a lot of the details. We also assign a severity index to it. So you're seeing a severity here at different levels, and this is customizable. So we have one based on a 12-point system to trigger an insight, and we'll walk you through that. So the first thing then is what you would want to do is you would want to look at these titles and try to piece together based on the times that they're occurring, what happened. So we can see here that we had a checkpoint threat emulation, a malicious file was permitted. And then we go down and we can see that the next thing that happened is CrowdStrike, which is embedded in our tool, it detected a summary event. So this is telling us that, we have some issues with malicious activity here. And then we have this threat intel device IP matched a threat intel file hash. Okay, so now we know some hashing has occurred through the threat intelligence that's coming up, and we have an event of that. And as you can see, each of these signals, once again, a different severity has been assigned. And then finally, we come to this proof point that the user received an email with a phishing link and the click was permitted. So we know now that, this was an issue. And if I go back to my slides, we're piecing together now the story. So we saw that we had all these signals that came in. We see the severity points. We can see that we got a 15 when we added up all those different severity points. And as for greater than a 12 severity points, within a 2-week period, then that fires the insight. Okay, so that's how we create the insight from the signals. So based on this, you would then, the next step is you would want to create a conclusion. Okay, so what conclusion would you come to? And the conclusion, might be something like this insight shows that it was a phishing attack that was successful, unfortunately. So we might take some course of action, right? So we decide to reach out to the user. We confirm that they didn't intentionally do anything, when we talk to them. It was all innocent, and then we clean up the Trojan off their machine, so that's one of the ways we can handle it. So going back to the HUD, okay, if these are not obvious, I want to point out that you can actually drill down further. So we're at a detailed view, but we can even drill down further. So click on any of these signals here. I'll just use the top one. And as you click on that, you can see if you need to get more details, it actually gives you more definition about which exact rule was fired, right? And it tells you down in here, you can see the different information about the source and the destination. You can look at the ingest source. So you get all of that tracking information, and you can actually customize all these extracted fields that are down here at the bottom, because some might be things that you might want to what we call tag. And you can see like making it a favorite here. You can enable them. And now that one will be highlighted back at the upper level. So it will, if I highlight that one and I go back up to the signal level, then that will then be shown up at the higher level. So it's really customizable and pretty easy to use to come to these conclusions. So one other thing to maybe point out is if you haven't played around with the time span, to maybe get familiar with that. But let me pause and see if you guys have any questions before, about this insight and about how to go and look at an insight.
One of the key things on this one is if you can just imagine the amount of different logs, the amount of different interfaces, and then connecting the dots that your SOC analyst would have to do to bubble this up to something that's unique and an insight. Just imagine how much time there is to do all that. And what we bring to the table with our SIEM product is the intelligence to dynamically look at these alerts, look at these rules, and combine them and interrogate them to give you that insight.
Very good, thank you. So the last steps is, oh yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, I have one question. On the insight page, every signal has its own severity, which I believe the number is from 1 to 10. But on the left-hand side, insight also have a severity. It's like medium, high, low. How's that severity calculated based on the signal severity, or is it like how that this value comes?
Well, you design it in the rules. We designed 700 rules for you that will actually have those already set for a severity level based on our SIEM understanding.
We also take the value from each one of the unique signals. They have a score. We add those up to that rolling aggregate to give you the threat level for the insight. So there was a slide earlier where we did the quick math.
Yeah, back here. Thank you.
That one here. So a phishing email, severity 4. You can tune these if you want. So some people think a phishing email, that's the first contact. That's the attacker's favorite, warm, soft middle of what they're calling after the human, right? And you can adjust these if you want. So the aggregate score, as you add those up, gives you a numeric. Now we map that numeric to a severity level within the product.
And what does mapping look like? Like 15 is medium, is for example, like how's that mapping?
Well, if it comes to a score greater than 12, then that's when we fire off an insight. That's what this means. This 15 adds up to greater than 12.
But I think his question is, and I don't know the answer, I'll go back to you, is as it goes higher than 15, all right, 15 could be a medium insight. As you move your way up to a higher number, what constitutes a high or a critical insight versus a medium? And I don't know the answer to that one right now. I can look that up real quick.
Yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
So then the last steps in this workflow would be to then actually show that you've taken action, right? And to update the status if it's closed at this point. So if we go back to the HUD, where do you do that? If you're inside an insight like this, I would just go back to my Sumo by clicking here. So on the Sumo, and that takes you back up to the hub. And so what you want to do is in this insight where I was at, I'll just click back in there. I just want to kind of get back into it. I can then look at the workflow here, and I can see that I have that insight in new. And I can make sure that I've moved it to in progress, right? When I was working on it. Now, if I feel like I've taken some action on it, so I might want to go ahead and I will click on it and go into the details of it. And you see here where we had in actions and close insight. So actions right here, I can choose, and this is customizable also. We put some in here, like a demisto or a JIRA ticket. So you can actually choose, like what you were going to do, what action you've taken in this. So maybe I've emailed this insight to somebody to work on. So I can actually go ahead and execute. So I can change that action so that now this is showing that I've taken some type of action on it. And then I can close this insight if I'd like to. So if I close this insight, I'm not going to do that right now, but I can show it here moving around to the different statuses. So I wanted to show it two different ways. You can either close it there, or you can change it down here using the drop down. And I can assign the resolution and say, okay, it's resolved. And any additional comments you can add into it and close the insight. Yeah.
Quick one on there. When you went over to the assignee, there was this spec ops, right? Under the actions. All right.
Under the assignee?
Click under your actions.
Oh, under actions.
Drop down. Spec ops, right? It was there earlier, but anyway, so if you go to the tile version or the card version, you're going to see a column called spec ops. Now, what is that? Well, we know our customers are usually, if you're not in this position, right, that's fantastic. They're bound by how many people they can hire and the amount of alerts, et cetera. So there is some hand-holding that we can do. So through a services contract, you can actually hire Sumo to be special forces, the spec ops. So if you go back out to your insights, your high-level insights, please.
Yeah, clicking here, right at the top.
Right in the middle, look at spec ops, right? So, as you get up to speed, you may want to use our spec ops service, and we'll do the investigation and work with you on that, right? We have human bodies looking at those on a regular basis in our cloud environment. And, we can actually, handhold and get you on board and do some level of just kind of working your way and showing you how the interface works. So if you're a customer that this looks really cool, but you know what, I need some help to start off. Well, our spec ops contract, we can actually have our folks, our experts helping you out. So if you were wondering what the spec ops was, I call it special operations. So these are the elite military, if you want to call it, in threat hunting.
Yeah, and this workflow can be customized too. These columns can be customized to what you would prefer. But this is the starting point.
The other question that was asked about the numbers and where they align to the actual levels, the minimum comes in as low as 12. As you work your way up, it gets higher and higher. That can be edited and changed within the profile itself. But I'm going to have to get the manual to crack a manual to figure out what the actual secret decoder ring is, but I'll get that for you.
Okay, so now before I send you guys off to do an insight, which we'll monitor and we'll come back as a group to discuss, but I want to just go through the workflow. So first thing is you're going to pick the highest priority new insight. Now we say pick the highest priority new insight, but you can pick whichever insight you want. In this activity, we have specified a certain insight that we want you to pick so that we can do it as a group activity, but you can look at other ones while you're playing around. But, as a SOC analyst, they'd probably come in here and pick the highest priority new insight more than likely, because that, would be a concern. Then examine each of the signals. So then once you click on that insight, go through and examine the signals. Then from that, then you want to piece together the story. and make a conclusion based on those signals, right? And remember, you can drill down into these signals to get more information on them, as I was showing you. And then finally, take an action, right? So then you're moving things along as to how are you responding, right? You're giving indication after your investigation of the response. So basically, the detection we do for you, basically, and then the response, the investigation and the response then is all managed through the system. And then finally, update the status, right? So that people can then see what's happening with that particular insight and you're communicating to the rest of your work team. So that's what you're going to do in the activity. And let me know, pause me if anybody has any questions, but I'll set you up for the next activity. It's also in your handout, so you can just follow your handout. You're going to go and look for the next insight and should be the next triangle over in the heads up display. And it's called initial access. Follow the workflow, and I'll put that up on the screen while you're doing this. And then I'm going to have a little poll running where you'll respond to questions. And by responding to those questions, we'll be able to find out, if you're following along, and then we'll wrap up at about 7 minutes. We'll regroup and discuss and make sure everybody's clear on that activity. Okay. So you're going to go look for this initial access, pick that one from out of the heads up display. And then examine a signal, make a conclusion, take an action, update the status, and answer the questions on the poll as we're running this. So I have a little timer here, and I'll go ahead and start that. But any questions before we get started? Not that you can't ask us questions as you're going through the activity, but if there's any questions. How did that go? Were you able to answer the poll questions? Let's take a look and see. And anybody have any comments they'd like to share at this point? Okay, all right. All right, so let's go ahead and share these results with you guys. So using the insight initial access, what were some of the insight signals? The top 3 there that were listed were the ones that were correct. Okay, so user attempted login from 2+ countries in 1 hour. And then you also saw a signal on impossible travel activity. And then there should have also been the third one down, threat intel URL match. So hopefully you saw those in the insight. All right, so then did you take it into the next level? Let's go ahead and look at the next slide here. So this is kind of a summary on the poll. So these were the correct answers on the first. For some reason, I don't think these 2 questions showed up, but it's okay. What conclusion did you guys come to? Did you see that there was a phishing email and it created an account compromise, that you needed to take action, and then take some action would be in the workflow, just following the workflow, you would always take an action at the end. So those are the answers to it, and this kind of summarizes it, all the signals, all the different signals that came in. So we saw that a security compliance alert on impossible travel with Napoleon. 10 hours later, he clicked on a malicious URL. This is basically the story. And then a security compliance alert signal was associated with Napoleon again. So therefore, with the same entity, right? With Napoleon's IP address and user ID, we were able to associate those. So that creates another signal that then would add up to creating an insight. 20 minutes later, Napoleon adjusts an endpoint security product severity, and 3 hours later, Napoleon logs out from 2 different countries in only 1 hour. So in this case, we can take that information and that we got from that. If I go back into the heads up display and go click on this activity, you can see that initial access. Very good. I see people moved it over to in progress. And if you click on that, you'll see that story that I was just reading here with the URL and just piecing together the time frames, either by using the times shown or the timeline span at the top. All right, so did anybody have any questions about it before we move on? All right, if not, I want to let you know that, the three things that I think are a strong message here is these three, which you're seeing: simplifying alerts. This is where our insights are being able to, let me stop sharing that poll, sorry about that, where insights are able to boil down hundreds of signals into a handful of signals so that it allows you to have more manageable action items, right? So that's one of the things that we can do using our tool here that you're seeing today. Investigating threats. So you can automate threat investigations with enrichment and correlated user, device, and network data. This helps you figure out the scenario of what happened, right? Piecing together the story. And then finally, automating actions. So here, the CSE rules and actions can automate your workflow, improving your SOC team's efficiency. And we want you to learn more. If you're interested, take our training. You have this in your handout also, so you can log in using this link. And we also have online documentation that you can reference. But before we leave you today, is there anything else that we could, Scott or I could talk with you about? Any questions?
So there's one thing that we didn't really talk about, and it's relatively right off the presses. Cisco, you know where I used to work, excuse me, Sumo. I was Cisco for 17 years. Ugh. Anyway, Sumo has closed and acquired a SOAR company called DF Labs. So if you're wondering, hey, what's after SIM, and from a process and a maturity point of view, what tools can we bring to continue this security journey in the portfolio? Take a look at the agenda and see if you can get into some of the sessions around our SOAR product. I don't know if there's still openings, but go take a look at them, and that'd be a fantastic one. Hot off the presses, brand new acquisition we just closed, and we have some really cool sessions going over the SOAR process and the SOAR technology itself.
Yeah, excellent, Scott. And there is a question. Somebody is asking about how they install it, how they get their CloudSIM module. I believe it's just an additional purchase if you go to our website, right, Scott?
It's an add-on purchase, so it actually bolts in or snaps into your existing data store in your cloud environment. So, when we looked at the charts earlier for compliance and for the base security, that's part of the base program or the base service that Sumo provides. Now, if you want to actually pull in the SIM technology, that is an add-on to an existing portfolio. When you do the SIM, you have to have the base, right? We need that base data to work off of, but it is an add-on as you move up the journey across there.
Yeah. So you're seeing the CloudSIM is available here at the security package or the enterprise level. And if somebody needs this path, I can just copy that and paste that in. Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions from anybody?
Well, it looks like we're going to give them 4 minutes back. Hey, so Jacqueline, how long will they have access to this portal, to these credentials? If they want to come back and play around at their leisure, or if they want to have fun, or if they can't fall asleep tonight, if they want to get access to this, how long will those credentials be available to them?
But we haven't really set up a time that we're going to change this password. But even if we change the password, they could just reach out to us. And that is just by, so you can use these credentials for several days. I don't know, I can't commit to like a month. But if you do, if the password does change, you could just reach out to us at training, and I'm typing that in, at sumologic.com. Anytime you have any issue accessing training information, and we want this to be available to you. We're not gonna, you can also go access this environment through, if you want to just go play around with it through a free trial. So you can go to our free trial, Sumo Logic free trial, and use it there. But yeah, it's open. You guys can play around with it, continue to experience, maybe go look at some other insights in here, right? Back up here at the heads up display, feel free to, I see you guys are playing. That's all good. Somebody actually put in another insight. So you can see now we got some customizable in progress. We would have to move one of these back to get one back as new. So very good. You guys are playing around in there, it looks like.